Thank you, Emmett. So I'm going to try in 10 minutes or so to try to bring everybody up to the same point of seeing where we are and what our questions are on this whole area of femtosecond laser refractive cataract surgery, and then we'll have an interactive panel of all of the principals of the 5 companies involved in this field. So the femtosecond laser basically, and Jack already touched on this, does several things for refractive cataract surgery. We create main and side port incisions, astigmatic keratotomies that can be either penetrating of the surface or intrastromal without penetrating the surface, something only a laser can do. Anterior capsulotomy and preparing the nucleus. And even possibly down the road, none of the systems do this currently, is the potential for precise circular posterior capsulotomies that we may need for the new generation of premium IOLs. So very briefly touching on all of these, we know that the femtosecond laser can cut the cornea. It's been used in over 3 million corneal incision procedures for LASIK and in keratoplasty. The computer control, the laser precision is without question, and image-guided systems clearly are capable of creating patterns that we cannot do with manual surgery. With the capsulotomy, the question has been, by making it more repeatable and more perfect in centration and all, can we improve outcomes? The opening of the capsule should, we think, on general principles, affect the final resting position of the lens. The manual capsulotomies that we do vary in centration and in circularity, and as that capsule contracts and shrink wraps around the implant, it can push it around. So the laser capsulotomy may give us a more constant effective lens position, and also the other problem being that from an optical quality point of view, that if a lens decenters, it can induce coma and astigmatism and other aberrations. So as we push more and more toward more perfect vision, this should give us better outcomes for all of our premium IOLs and certainly for multifocal IOLs. The effective lens position, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but there has been an extensive literature documenting the importance of where that lens exactly is inside the eye. And we can try to predict that preoperatively, but the truth is that there's a lot of variability in that despite our best efforts. And to show you that this may be a real issue, and again, this is just more literature that shows this positional impact. It is critical to control that diameter, and I'm going to give you a little case history of a patient. This was donated by Eric Donenfeld. Now, I know most of the people in this room are not ophthalmologists, but I think you'll get the point of this. A man had had phaco IOL and was very, very happy initially with 20/20 uncorrected vision, and 2 years later came back and his uncorrected vision had dropped down to 20/50. And if you look at the refraction, you see that he is hyperopic. He's shifted in the plus direction, so that, of course, is why his uncorrected vision is worse. And with that correction, he's back to 20/20. So the rest of his eye is fine, and there are no abnormalities detectable on standard exams. So the question is, you pose this to ophthalmologists, what do? Do you do a surface ablation? Do you do LASIK? Do you exchange the IOL? Do you put a piggyback IOL? Do you do conductive keratoplasty, or do you do something else? Well, you can guess, of course, that I wouldn't be presenting this if it wasn't anything other than number 6. And this is the answer. This is what the dilated exam looked like. And again, for those who aren't used to looking at these, this is the opening, the capsulotomy. This gray reaction is a fibrotic reaction that's very common, but what it has done is it's caused constriction of that opening. This opening was much bigger at the time of cataract surgery. So there's been like the equivalent of a sphincter contracting that opening, and this is what Eric did. He put in some laser spots and cut that opening, and that relaxes the tension created by that contraction. And what happened to the patient, and this is a little undilated, the patient went right back to where they were supposed to be, 20/20, uncorrected, and with basically no refractive error. So the reason I'm just running through that is it's very compelling evidence that we can push the intraocular lens around with that opening in the capsule. So it should mean that controlling that, which only a laser can do reliably, should give us better results. Now, as far as the nucleus goes, pre-treatment and extraction issues to be determined. A big effort, and I'm going to have the panelists in a minute talk a little bit about where they where we are and where we're going on that, because that is actually where this technology started. I think the dream when this all started was that this was going to replace phacoemulsification, and we're not there yet. So we can talk about that during the panel. So in the real world, what about this technology? And I have plenty of biases. My career has been centered on lasers, so I'm a laser guy. You know, I've never met a laser I didn't like. Ron Kurtz and Tibor Juhas are two of our esteemed faculty members who I regard as great friends as well as great faculty members, and so that biases me. And I've had the privilege of being involved in all of this from the beginning, so that's clearly an intellectual bias. You know, in science, it's said that lasers are solutions looking for problems, and in medicine, lasers are cures looking for diseases. So the real question is, has this laser found a disease that it can cure? The positives are significant, and I've run through them implicitly here. It's going to create a better primary incision. We're going to have better astigmatism control if we can control the size and orientation of the incisions. And if we can make an incision that seals better through reliability and through patterns perhaps that we can't create manually with surgical blades, we can have less risk of endophthalmitis. Better astigmatic incisions, more reproducible than anything you can do with the human hand. And these intrastromal incisions have everybody intrigued because they don't violate the surface, no risk of infection, should be more controllable. They won't be as powerful, but a lot of the use of this will be for lower level astigmatism, which is really where most of the astigmatism is. Other positives, can we get the nucleus out safer? Will the rate of broken capsules, vitreous loss, things that are complications that can really affect a person forever, will those in fact be reduced and those problems eliminated or at least reduced in frequency? If you use less ultrasound energy, we do know it's better for the backside of the cornea, the endothelial cells that are very fragile. And if there's less nuclear manipulation, that'll be better too. So we actually have here technology that may be the first major change that makes the procedure easier. And you know, some of us, we've talked about the paradox that the early adoption of these kind of naturally, of course, is with people who are cutting edge, and they may be the people who need this technology the least. The most positive impact of this technology may be for the average surgeon. And so one question that I want to hear about is how people think we're going to get these lasers out in the field and in the hands of the average ophthalmologist, because it lowers the bar instead of raising the bar for being able to do the procedure. Negatives, well, clearly there's money. You got to buy it and you've got to pay to use it. And so one question is, how much price elasticity is there in this premium refractive market? We don't know the answer to that yet. There's the cost of time, total time per patient. Who's going to do the procedure? Is the surgeon going to bounce in and out of the operating room? Is this device going to be in the operating room? If it's out of the operating room, can a nurse practitioner or physician assistant, or is it going to be a second licensed surgeon? What's the impact on optometry? Are they going to now up the pressure on getting licensed to do this through the educational system known as the state legislatures? Little bias there. And long turnover sites obviously can be less affected. So for me working in a university hospital, this is a piece of cake. It won't slow me down a bit. So, but there are flow logistics, and I want to hear people's thoughts about that as well. Surgical challenges, small pupils, that's going to be a problem, you know, unless you're going to go in and out of the operating room and put hooks in or Maleugen ring or something like that. There will be still some cases where you can't do the capsulotomy, so there's going to be the need to maintain manual skills. There's an issue that's not the world's biggest, but still patients, all other things being equal, are not going to want red eyes after this procedure, so subconjunctival hemorrhages are undesirable. So, you know, the average guy you talk to who at this meeting, the past meetings, is basically got this dilemma. You know, part of it that's going on in that surgeon's brain is, I want to be a leader. I'm not going to be left behind this time. Sometimes they say, this is crazy. What are we doing? This doesn't make any sense. I do fine just the way it is. And the truth is, most people are right there. They just are waiting. They want to know. They're looking. They're listening. And there's a lot of questions that are exceeding the number of answers. But so again, now my personal feeling, better technology has historically trumped cost. We find a way to make it work. But we argue a lot before we get there. And if you see evidence of this all the time, it started, you know, in my career, and it's been going on long before that, but I started as an intracapsular surgeon, and there was a lot of resistance to changing to extracap. And then there was resistance going from extracap to phaco, and radial keratotomy to excimer. I mean, I was at that first FDA hearing where they actually had an ophthalmologist complain to the FDA that this whole thing, excimer laser industry, was an industry-driven phenomenon just so the industry to make money, because for $50,000 investment, he was doing just great with radial keratotomy. Well, how many RKs are being done today? PRK to LASIK. I mean, you had microkeratome and then femtosecond laser, all those extra costs. Femtoflaps, wavefront LASIK, another thing that hit at the same time as the intralace for flaps, so doubling the cost. Again, a lot of carrying on about that, but look where we are now. So my personal conclusions are that we certainly know laser refractive cataract surgery will resonate with patients, similar to the all-laser LASIK, the way that did. Outcomes should improve. We have to prove that, because ultimately that is all that list that I just gave you of the things where technology, and we found it trumped cost, and we found a way to make it happen. We're outcome driven. Ultimately, you have to show there's a good reason to do that and to spend the money. But I think the real fundamental challenge to all of us is that as a disruptive technology, femtosecond refractive cataract surgery has implications that we're struggling to grasp and wrap our heads around. Where is this going to take us? You know, Charlie Kelman, you know, I said phaco to extracap to phaco and just glanced over that, but the real truth is, as many of you all know, it was crude in 1967, and it was pretty crude through the 70s. But ultimately, that stimulated foldable IOLs. And those foldable IOLs, in turn, stimulated better phaco. And that is really what led us to where we are today. It was the combination of things. And I can guarantee you, well, other than maybe Charlie himself, I don't think anybody in 1968 was thinking about foldable IOLs. Remember, the biggest excuse for not doing phaco was that we didn't have foldable IOLs. And people didn't see where that could go. So, as I said, it took 15 years to begin, and another 5 years before it was 50% of the market. And look at how many times we tried to modify PMMA lenses. We made them oval, we made them smaller, we did all sorts of things, trying to avoid the obvious, which was we needed foldable IOLs. So, just to set it out there are a lot of variables in the different systems. There's the graphic user interface, the way the surgeon and the people in the room interact with the laser, the imaging technology, the patient interface, how the laser connects to the patient, the available incision patterns, and the way the nucleus is pre-treated. So those are some of the topics that I think our panel will be addressing, and I think we're now ready to call them up.